Welcome to the dungeon with Harlan and Andrew.
All right. Hi. Hello and welcome. We are unmuted. We are here. It is the dungeon.
I'm Andrew Overdahl.
And I'm Harlan Kelly.
And this is our little talk show where we chat tabletop role-playing games.
Our little talk show.
Our little talk show.
Our little tiny, we shrink down to tiny size for this.
Where we chat TTRPGs with people who run them.
It's true. And this week we have our special guest, Nick Uroseva. He's the GM of Tales of the Voidfarer, the podcast Tales of the Voidfarer, which is also a 5e Spelljammer influenced actual play D&D game, the same as Andrew and ours. And it's on the Project Derailed network. You can listen to it all over the place. It's excellent. We highly recommend checking it out.
You're
Nick,
too kind.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's happy to be here.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, what is your personal history with role-playing games?
Well, I got into D&D, obviously through Dungeons & Dragons first. It's really funny. I was in college, and I was always nerdy into the different nerdier stuff. I was actually president of our university's Harry Potter club, and one of my friends who founded that club came to me the one day and said, "Hey, do you want to play D&D sometime?" And I went, "Look, man, I'm nerdy. I'm not that nerdy." But eventually he wore me down and I played, and now 10 years later, it's like my obsession. So
that's such a common story. Why is that the line?
Yeah.
Why was it the line for so many people?
It's that hierarchy of nerdiness, and now since then I've graduated onto LARPing and all kinds of other stuff. It's only gotten worse from there. But yeah, that was my start. We started in 3.5, which was the era when 4th edition was a thing, but the group I played with wasn't about it, which was very common. And then we moved on to Pathfinder, and then I found 5e, and I'm not going to ever look back. So.
Yeah.
And since then, I've played all kinds of other stuff, indie RPGs, RPGs that are not Dungeons and Dragons. So there's so much out there, but D&D always has that, near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, it's the gateway for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me then, what was your pathway into wanting to DM something like Spelljammer? Because like you're talking about, 5e is like this super smooth, nice system. There's all of this content for it. What brought you over to wanting to do something that was out there? I'm not trying to make a pun, but
it's very out there. We like the idea of Spelljammer. Well, so it started with we were kicking around the idea. So me and my friend started Project Derailed, which was a web site, basically just a platform for us to do the nerdy things we wanted to do online. Just our hobbies and channel our energy into that. And we were thinking about doing a D&D actual play of some sort for a long time, whether it be a stream. We started out thinking about doing a stream, and then we settled on podcast. But I wanted to do something that was not as common. We like D&D 5th edition, especially because it's very approachable. Plus it's that brand name that everybody knows and recognizes. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit different, a little bit of a departure from the classical fantasy setting. So I'm a huge fan of space fantasy and sci-fi, and we wanted to go that route. And originally I was just going to do my own setting in like a space D&D 5e setting, space fantasy. So, all your fantasy races, but in spaceships. It kind of, and this was before Starfinder, but it was kind of like that, where there was like these enclosed magic-based spaceships. And then I stumbled onto Spelljammer, and that was already an existing IP from the history of Dungeons and Dragons itself. And the more I dug into it, the more I fell in love with it because it's so quirky and weird and just so much fun. And it seems that there's a huge fan base for Spelljammer out there online. Every new product that gets announced from Wizards of the Coast, everybody is speculating if it's going to be Spelljammer or not.
Spelljammer confirmed, yeah.
Spelljammer confirmed. There was a reason I named the Gen Con live stream we did Spelljammer confirmed.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was just an awesome setting and I fell in love with it immediately. And that's how we landed on that.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit here and there, both on stream and off stream, because all of the most everyone who plays on our Monday game has pretty decent, if not D&D experience, like nerd experience, and it's been new to all of them, which has been fun to kind of like have this little untouched world that about. But also, I just find it super liberating. Like just the way you were talking about it, I feel like how you kind of wanted to do a homebrew, and now it forces you to do it, to make up a lot of your own stuff and to fill in a lot of gaps. There's so much material for it, but it's also you just have to, there's not, it's space. There's not everything outlined everywhere.
Exactly. Well, and we even for Voidfarer took the liberty of distancing ourselves both in the like timeline and the like actual location in the setting to give us some freedom to tweak stuff, to update stuff, to adapt rather than convert. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So Tom Goldthwait, who is our producer on the show, he actually helps write. Him and I have powwows to plan out each session. So like I'll usually come to him with the idea and like, here's what I'm thinking. And then him and I will bounce ideas back and forth and come up with it. But so like we set our game. So we wanted it to be tangentially like canonical to the lore and the actual published works of Spelljammer and Dungeons and Dragons and that rich history that is already there. But we wanted to give ourselves freedom to do our own thing. So we set our game like 300 years into the future from the published works of Spelljammer back in second edition. And we're also doing it in a completely homebrewed crystal sphere of my creation. So that gives us the freedom to say, spelljamming magical technology has advanced to this point, and here's kind of how it works now. And here's some completely new ideas that have popped up. And it gives us the freedom to have fun and do our thing, but still pay homage to, those publications that everybody knows and loves.
Which is such a good general DM tip. Like that's in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, that's such a smart thing to do, because you always have things at your fingertips, but you can make it whatever you want to. So you just have a foot in both pools, which is, so if you're a DM listening to that, do that,
do that.
Steal what you want, use the cool stuff, put in your game, but also run away from it. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Totally. One thing I was wondering, we got a little taste of like ship to ship combat in our game that Harlan cooked up for us. I was just curious how you handle your ship to ship combat. If that is even something that pops up in your games.
Yeah. It only really has in one occasion, and I mostly did it. Now there's so many rules out there for ship to ship combat, but honestly, since our game being something that we're doing to perform basically for others and to be a content that is listened to, we're focusing on the narrative. So I did not get bogged down with the mechanics of ship to ship combat, and so it honestly got hand waved most of it. The one major ship to ship combat that has happened in Voidfarer, which was episode 3-2 2-2, which was the Draugr and the Marlin. That that was a huge ship combat. I'm really proud of that episode, but we mostly focused on the narrative for that. I did not get bogged down with, the ship's movements or different ship actions and that sort of thing, because there was that self-contained story of our three player characters that we wanted to tell, and their journey through that combat and how they were contributing to it and everything. So the actual turn by turn actions the ship were taking was not something that we were really all that worried about. Now we may get into that for the future of the show, but for that one instance so far, it was mostly just using the ship combat as a narrative setting than an actual pieces on a battlefield.
Right, because
Nice.
I mean, it's even with we have a Roll20 board up on our show, and even with that, it's a difficult thing to do because rules is written kind of like the examples of it that are in official rules are very encouraging of you not doing it. It's kind of like with the hell machines. I can't remember the infernal machines from Avernus and stuff. It's like, hey, this is because it's a turn-based person-centric game, so like individuals each doing their thing. But and so I've read a lot of advice that's like, oh, have the ship stuff happen and then have people attack each other or whatever. But there's something like appealing, right, about like you have this cool ship, let's do this cool thing. So I don't know. I struggle with it every day.
Well, there's a reason why Avernus is a great example because it uses the same vehicle rules, but Ghost of Saltmarsh, I highly recommend that book if you're running Spelljammer in 5e, because those nautical rules translate to Spelljammer as easy as saying it's space instead of an ocean.
Truly.
There, it's done. It's Spelljammer now.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, there's a reason why it treats vehicle stats almost identical to monster stats. The ship stats in that book look like monster stat blocks. There's a reason for that, and that's because D&D is built to be so creature individual focused, like you said, that it treats the ship as an entity, a monster on the battlefield, basically. So I take a lot of inspiration from that book and look into it, but at the end of the day, we're focusing on the story of our characters. So that's mostly what we've been focusing on in Voidfarer thus far.
I love that.
Nice.
That's such a smart, controlling of the game. Like controlling is the wrong word because it sounds like you're, steering the ship, but it's more of just like keeping the players kind of in this realm. That's smart.
Yeah,
totally. You had mentioned as we were setting up the show, you're about to debut your fourth chapter. Congrats on that.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how many games/episodes do you have per chapter?
It varies. We basically let the chapter length be however long it needs to be to tell the story we want to tell for that chapter. So our first chapter was only 5 episodes long. Our second chapter was 9, and our third chapter I think was 6. So I'm not sure. I think chapter 4 will probably be on the longer side, since chapter 3 was more of like an interlude, like the ship was damaged from the events of chapter 2. So it was a lot of the characters, taking free time to themselves and exploring things in port. But now that we're back out exploring the crystal sphere of Krot space, I think this chapter will probably be at least 9 episodes. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's real. I'll plan out episodes, and a lot of times that'll get tossed to the wind about halfway in. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah.
Just like the player plans. It's good. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So were you talking about that a little bit though? Because I'm sure I've experienced how different DMing is for a live stream than it is at the table, and ways I could have imagined, but also just the experience of it has been such a different mental process. It's got to be its own unique thing to DMing in a pre-recorded way for a podcast, and then also going back through and editing it. Like how have you found that experience? How has it changed the way you DM? How do you change the way you DM intentionally? What's that like?
Yeah, we definitely it's different because like normally like when I'm running one of my normal games right now, I'm running a Waterdeep Dragon Heist game right now, and I plan for like a 4-hour session when I sit down and do that. But when I'm recording, when we're doing a Voidfarer episode, we're recording maybe 2 hours, and that's knowing it'll get edited down to like an hour and a half, or less. So it's kind of fine tuned to exactly what we're going to get done. So like it's basically like one story beat of what would have been a normal a normal session, that had several story beats in it, is probably all that's going to happen in an episode. One, maybe 2 story beats, because you want to give time for the characters to role play, which is my favorite part, where I can just sit back and let my players, who are all fantastic, role play amongst each other. But that's going to eat up a bunch of time of the episode, and I know it's going to happen every episode. So I only plan for only 1, maybe 2 major things to happen in an episode. And even then, if it's more of like a dungeon crawly like scenario, I would have to plan for basically the whole chapter, the whole season, to be that dungeon crawl, which is what happened in our season 2.
Oh,
is
cool.
like probably 2/3 of that whole season is a dungeon crawl. They were exploring an abandoned Githyanki flying fortress, which was a lot of fun. But it was like, they explored maybe 2 or 3 rooms an episode and then just role played amongst themselves in between all of those details. So for them to get through the whole thing, which was a very small, simple dungeon, still took 4 episodes.
Yeah. I've really found that that's affected my DMing outside of it, because it's like fine tuning a muscle of like focusing on beats and stuff like that, where I'll still do the same thing, but when I get like locked on a beat, I'm like, okay, cool, I know that these 2 things are here, or whatever. So and it was a strict contrast, because we recently did a live stream for Gen Con Online, where we had our special guests, Bonnie Gordon and Xander Generet, the library bards, come play with us, which was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. But that was different because we had a strict 2-hour time frame on that. So it was a lot of rapid fire, let them role play and then be ready to jump in and say, all right, and now this happens. And luckily everything went smoothly, and we managed to keep it relatively with only a couple minutes over in that 2-hour time frame. But it's definitely different, running for a live stream compared to running for a podcast that is pre-recorded and then edited. Well, hats off to you. You seem to be able to pull off all of them very smoothly.
Nice.
I wear many hats.
In our Spelljammer game, our captain / Spelljammer is an NPC that Harlan controls. In your game, is it a player character, or do you control the captain?
No, the captain of the ship is an NPC, Valeria Rain, who got introduced very early in our session when she recruited the characters. But the players are in this weird position, even amongst the crew of the show, the other NPCs that make up the crew of the ship, that they have a little bit more of a say, because they are kind of special in some weird ways that haven't quite been revealed yet. But for the most part, the ship is run by an NPC, and the other officers are NPCs, and the players just kind of make up this kind of like de facto away team that the ship uses. They're all around problem solvers, go scout a location, go scout for salvage, go, solve this problem. The PCs are the ones that do that, which is by design, both as a DM and as from a narrative standpoint, because that explains why they go to do the things that they go do, and the other 30 some NPCs that make up the crew of the ship. Yeah.
30. Wow.
Yeah. It may have been a mistake in hindsight, but I was
Man,
trying.
I feel like that way about like having like 4 NPCs. I'm like, I put too many NPCs here. Yeah.
Right. No, and I did name and flesh out all of them. I might be a little bit insane, but no, well, the thing of it was, is that the thing of it was, is that they are on a galleon. It's modified, but judging by like the stats provided by Spelljammer, which we don't put a whole lot of stock in, but I wanted it to feel like a ship that is crewed with riggers and gunners and, you know, the various officers and all of that stuff. I wanted it to feel like a ship that actually exists, that everybody has a job, and the day-to-day on the ship is full of NPCs that are off doing their own thing off camera. So having all of these named NPCs that pop up helps lend to that depth and you know, of the setting and everything. So that's really what I was going for, and only a handful of them have been super prevalent, but I do try to throw them all in. If one hasn't gotten a name drop in a while, I'll throw them in places. And I have a Google spreadsheet that I shared with the cast, so they can constantly peruse it, have it in front of them. So if they ever want to reference a random NPC on the ship and know what it is, who they are, and what they do on the ship, they can reference it.
That's amazing. Gosh, we talked about on this
Yeah.
show before, Joshua Smith, who was on before, coined this term that's really stuck in my head called the aura of rigor, like showing your party a little bit of something so it feels like everything is there. And I feel like that is the opposite of that. That is like the, oh no, it's actually, here's my spreadsheet, guys. Yeah. It's so good.
It's all there.
Yeah.
And I think part of that might have been inspired by the Pathfinder adventure, Skull and Shackles, which did that. Which I never ran that. I briefly played in a short-lived campaign that was running it, but as far as I'm aware, it statted out like and named every NPC on the ship. So I think part of that, and that was really cool to know that, you know, you can go up to any NPC and they have a name, they have a you know what race they are, what job they do on the ship, what name they have, and a little bit about them. And as a DM, that's challenging, but I think I did. I tried to do at least a different, try to make each character distinct. So even though there's 30 of them, they're all vastly different from one another in terms of both their character and, you know, just their presence aboard the ship.
I love that. It makes
that
the world
probably
feel
adds
huge.
like so much depth. Yeah.
It's like
I like our ship. I'm not saying I don't like our ship. Our ship is very cozy. It has a very cozy feel. I like it.
Next one you're getting has 31 NPCs. You know what?
Gotta show us up.
No, that's so cool because it's like, I think I've talked about this before about like when I look at a map from a fantasy world or like one in a book, I just immediately start to be like, whoa, there's this whole world. And that's one of my favorite parts about D&D and all in any tabletop role-playing game is that just that feeling of your mind being able, just like starting to get busy. And so that's so cool that you have built this mobile town for them pretty much to
that's basically it, because they're going to be spending so much time aboard the Voidfarer that I wanted it to be a setting of itself. And the ship itself is like almost a character, so like, you know, I can between destinations do entire storylines that deal with interactions between characters or various drama that's going on with that. And there is enough there's enough tools in the toolbox to be able to do that. So it's really given me a lot to work with story wise. You know, even in the second chapter, there was a whole thing where the captain got the ship into a conflict that many of the crew members thought was unnecessary, and it led to the death of one of the crew members. So then a huge faction of the crew were like, you know, it was a not mutiny, as we call it. they were having discussions.
Oh boy.
They were having discussions. It was not a mutiny.
Pre-mutiny.
It was a pre-mutiny.
Negotiations.
Yeah.
But those are great. Those are always like the best scenes in any submarine movie, is the secret conversations going on.
Exactly. And then the players who were still relatively new to the crew had to figure out where they stood. And you know,
that's great. What a good crossroads. Yeah, that's awesome.
Sure.
Well, do you want to get to
we have some good questions in chat, so let's do the roll table. If you want to roll a d20, we have a table of questions.
Sure. I will roll my largest d20.
Oh boy, look at that.
Whoa, I thought I had a big d20. Dang.
That was a 3.
All right. Well,
a 3.
We've had a lot of low rolls lately. We had 2 1s in a row, so now we got a 3. Let's do a 3.
Wow.
This is a question, I guess, for either of you. I'd love everybody's thoughts on it. When you do leveling up, do you go by XP or do you just go by narrative achievements / story mode?
Story mode for sure. Definitely the latter, and generally the way it's been going for our show as a medium that is to be consumed, we are leveling up once per chapter, so at the top each chapter the players have advanced a new level.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, so that's the way we're going about it. And even when I play at home, XP leveling has never appealed to me in the slightest. I don't want to do the work of tracking the monsters they fought, you know what I mean? And the achievements they've gained to calculate how much XP they get, plus any NPCs that were helping them that would take away from the XP that they gained and all of that stuff. Nobody has any time for that. So
this is my 30-person ship thing, because I love having the map of XP, but I'm still 100% with you, where I've only started to do it recently because I felt so like I was just doing it willy-nilly, just like as the story felt right. And a lot of the times I think that's the way to go. Do it. It doesn't matter. But I've really enjoyed kind of backpedaling from that and just having because the players can feel it, right? Like they can feel it a little bit when they're like, "Ooh, we've been doing this a while," and they feel it kind of like spread out. Like leveling from 3 to 4 is different than leveling from 4 to 5 sometimes, or whatever. Like they just feel how things are bigger changes are happening. And so I've been doing it. I've just recently started kind of like keeping track as a like, oh, I wonder if my inner calibration is right here. But again, like it's like you said, it's got to be different with it. Like building with the chapters thing is so important. Like that still feels right. It still feels like, okay, we're onto a new thing. Of course, they would kind of get to a new place.
Totally. I've never used XP. I've always done story mode, but I have played in games where the DM used XP with our friend Joshua Smith, and at the end of the session, he does it with you, and he goes through, and it feels like the end of a video game level where you see the like numbers like adding up. He'll be like, you killed this and this for this much, you did this and this, and it is like suspenseful and fun, but it is also like it's 2 very different vibes for sure. And the one that the characters are like, whoa, we just overcame this crazy challenge, and it kind of fits within the story, and then the other one it's the more stripped away, just like you see that your numbers go up and they change. But it's kind of exciting to get when you're like, oh man, we're like 80 points away. But I feel like when you do that, if the players know how short on XP they are to level, they'll just go seek out something to like needlessly kill,
right?
Just to get there.
Go kill boars in the woods for a day.
Just to add up. And I just don't want to argue with my players about how much XP, or how much XP you get from RPing, because I'm happy to be gluttonous with it sometimes. Like overshoot to kind of get them to the level or whatever. But I don't want to go back and do the math. With you
for sure. Right. Yeah, I tracked XP only when I was doing a West Marches style game because that was when I was playing with 12 players and not everybody played every session.
Yeah.
So I wanted to track, XP for that reason. That way, players that weren't there weren't getting to level, basically would not doing anything. But even then I adopted a simplified leveling system because I wasn't about tracking hundreds of thousands of XP across sessions when I can just say, when I can just say, hey, you gain 1 experience point per combat plus bonuses for RP and other achievements, and you level up when you get 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I wish we had 30 more minutes because I want to hear all about that West Marches game now.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
We
do have a few questions in chat that I think I can that we can hopefully get to. I can condense these two. This is from 2 different people. Have either of you ever tried the Planescape setting in your games? And also, outside of Spelljammer and the standard medieval English fantasy D&D setting, what other setting do you guys like?
I have. I've used a lot of Planescape stuff for cosmic structures, like god structures, and just like planar travel because it's just great. And I also really love the City of Doors. I think it's the best like single place in anything D&D has ever made.
Super cool.
But yeah, besides that, I think by the time I've said this before, but like the first time I played Dungeons and Dragons, my DM made a homebrew world, so I kind of like had to reverse learn that there was canon. You know what I mean? So yeah. No, Planescape is super, super cool. Sigil, the City of Doors, the Lady of Pain, all that stuff. Super, super cool. I have been reading into it and will be incorporating some of that stuff into Voidfarer in future chapters. So if you're a Planescape fan, in addition to a Spelljammer fan, check us out. Yeah, let's just us. We had Nick, Jason Cerncy on the show who runs Weird and Wild. We can just have all of our ships meet in the astral plane. It'll be great.
Yeah, having a Githyanki in the party for Voidfarer has definitely at least tied the adventure to the astral plane, just in that regard, because Tuna Wrath exists on the astral sea, and actually the one shot we just did for Gen Con Online dealt with the players being trapped on the astral sea unexpectedly.
There you go. If you're a Planescape fan, go watch it. I'll tweet it after this. I'll tweet that episode because I've also watched the first little bit of it, and I was like, oh god, I want to watch the rest. This is very fun. So
it was a lot of fun. Yeah. It's very fan servicey, and which I was worried that our guests would be lost, but it went very well. It's one of my favorite episodes that we've done.
Speaking of which, I think there's a fan question in the chat that I want to know. I want to know what this is.
It says, when are we getting the Coot spinoff, Nick?
That's my friend Roger. He you know what? If enough people tweet at me, that might happen.
What is it? Give us the number. Do it. What's the number? How many retweets does it need?
Oh fuck.
You're welcome, his friend Roger. You don't have to. You don't have to. But,
we'll see.
Well, I'm a Coot fan now.
I'll think about it.
Yeah.
Coot is the Twirtle cook of the Voidfarer, who we've hinted has a interesting and mysterious past.
Nice.
He seems completely senile, but there may be more to him than meets the eye.
I'm on the Coot train. Let's go.
Nice. Well, that is our time. Thanks so much for stopping by, Nick. Do you want to plug your show, the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the DM of Tales of the Voidfarer. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Our chapter 4 premieres next Tuesday. It's going to be a blast. We're doing some really cool new stuff. And you can follow us on Twitter at VoidfarerPod and at Voidfarer Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And you can follow me at Nick_Uroseva on Twitter.
Nice. And Harlan and I, we also have a Spelljammer live play show right here on this channel. It's every Monday night. If you want a Spelljammer doubleheader, Mondays and Tuesdays are covered. You are set. You're going to be set. Our show is called Better Than Heroes. You can check us out on social media at Better Than Heroes. And yeah, did I cover everything?
That's it. Yeah. Oh, man.
Did it.
Truly great having you on. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this tiny little corner of the universe with us.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and thank you all for watching, and thanks for your questions and chat.
And don't forget, tip your DM.
Tip your DM.
Tip
That's
your
right.
DM.
Now you remember.
I remember this time. All right. See y'all. Bye. Thank you so much.
See ya.